Lots of people talk about chasing their dreams, but how many actually do it? Welcome to the Pursue Your Passion podcast with Tyler Kammerman. We're going to introduce you to people who are intentionally pursuing their passion every day. Through their stories of success and their struggles, you'll gain insight into how to better begin or continue your journey. Now here's Tyler with today's guest.
Welcome back, Passion Pursuers. Tyler Kammerman here with you, and I am excited to introduce you to my new friend, Teeg Stouffer. Teeg, welcome to the show.
So happy to be on your show. I've enjoyed being a listener. I'm so honored to be a guest.
Awesome. Teeg is a storyteller and a filmmaker. His business, Fascination Film Studio, tells the fascinating stories of ordinary people who shape the world around us. He is a husband and a father, Christ follower, outdoorsman, and has done a lot of things in his career as he's pursued his passion. And passions. I'm pretty sure there's plural in there. It could be said that he's made most of his living in media, marketing, and events, but he'd say he's a multi-potentialite. We're going to have to unpack that as well. So we're going to talk to him today about that. But, Teej gave me a little bit of extra background that I just loved. So, most recently, he's been a fishing lure salesman. He's worked for the Department of Homeland Security, founded a few in his spare time, for-profit companies and a couple of nonprofits as well. He's been involved in real estate and lost a lot of money that way. And he's been involved in famous events that people have never heard of. He led the #1 retail grand opening team in the U.S. and has done some of the biggest, splashiest grand openings in America over the last 10 years. He's been the voice of Mountain Dew, so I probably followed that voice on numerous adventures, and has been on staff at a church. So lots of different stuff. I was off the conversation, or I should say before we hit the record button, Teej and I was saying, yep, we're very similar in a number of different ways. And so the variety of places that you've been and jobs that you've done is just another one of those ways. In his bio, he mentions real estate, and that is actually how we got connected, because a mutual friend of ours connected him with my wife, Jessica, and she worked with Teej on selling his parents' house. So just all the different ways that connections come into play, and now we get to talk on the Pursue Your Passion podcast. So once again, welcome, Teej.
Oh man, I feel welcome. Thank
Awesome.
you for the warm welcome.
That's the goal, right? We want to make people feel welcome wherever we are.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's a good way to live.
Bio kind of opens the door wide open for a bunch of different directions. But, as you're aware, Teej, I like to kick it off with, tell us about the passion or passions that you're currently pursuing.
Yeah. What it is I really love people, and people will drive us crazy. And we look around and we're like, look at all these dummies around me. Come on, you dummies. And it's so easy to do that. But
100%.
Guess what? I'm a dummy too. And I'm also a people, and I love people. And one of the things about me is that I love fishing and always have. It's been in my wiring to love fishing. And so I worked at a fishing company, and man, talk about pursuing your passion. But in my last role, part of my role there, it wouldn't have mattered if I was selling fishing lures or shoelaces or sugar water. It wouldn't have mattered because it's all enterprise sales,
Sure.
And I love people. It's not that I love spreadsheets. I definitely don't love fishing more than I love people. And I love story, and I love the stories that come from people. And so that's really what brought me here, is that B strengths for me are salesmanship. That's a B strength for me. Leadership. I'm a strong leader. I can do analysis. I can do data. I can swim in a spreadsheet with the best of them, but nobody's ever going to hire me to be their accountant.
Sure.
That's not what I do. And so my A strengths are really experiences and people and relationships and telling those stories in a compelling way. And that's really what got me to make the leap into full-time filmmaking. It's been part of something that I've done my whole life. I was one of those kids who was in the 80s with one of those giant VHS camcorders. And so all my life I've been telling stories through various means and methods.
That's great.
But now I do it vocationally.
unpack that for us. What is the I sort of know the answer to this, right? But you talked about your love for people, you talked about your love for storytelling. Those are both coming together with fascination films, right? So tell us what your gig is there.
Yeah, I will. And you brought up the ways that your wife brought you and I together, and that she was helping sell my boyhood home. My mom died 17 years ago. My dad passed away, a year and a half ago, and that was kind of the tripwire. My dad died, and it wasn't like, geez, then my life really came into perspective. It
Sure.
wasn't that. We're all gonna die. I mean, that's not a surprise. If it's a surprise to you, hey, I got news. You're
Right.
gonna die. It's not a surprise, and it wasn't a surprise when my dad went. He had been sick, and so it wasn't a surprise. It's not that. It's not that. Oh, now I get. It's that then you have this very deliberate act to carry out, which is get rid of all their stuff.
Sure.
And so, you're going through the attic and you're thinking about all these objects in a different way than you did, and I'm going through this attic and I'm opening these boxes. I opened this box and inside was these African artifacts. And I was like, what is this? And then it came to me, I know what this is. I have, like, I guess to me it'd be like a great aunt or great uncle who were missionaries in Africa. And I was like, oh yeah. This is from them. These are like 100-year-old African artifacts. What were their names? What was their name again? And I thought, oh, Dad would know. I couldn't ask my dad. And it's not that he never told me. He did tell me. And
Sure.
I thought, foolishly, I'll remember. But you don't remember, And that really planted a seed. Gosh, I mean, I'm a recorder of things. And I didn't record this, and now it's hard to know the answer. Who were these people? Were they the good guys, or were they like colonialists or something?
Yeah,
I
right.
don't know. I can't know. Well, then as I'm going through the attic and I'm finding more things, on my mom's side, my great-grandmother, she came here to Iowa in a covered wagon. Literally, I
Wow.
know somebody. I knew her. Like, my great-grandmother was alive till I was in college.
Sure.
So I really knew this lady. I saw her once
That's
a week.
cool.
She came here in a covered wagon, man. And so my kids are born into extraordinary comfort. They'll complain if I get the wrong brand of chicken nuggets. She probably had like a fistful of cornmeal a day to eat or something.
Right.
Literally coming across the prairie, lightning struck their wagon and killed her siblings on either side of her. But she lived, and one result of that is that I live.
Whoa.
So I'm going through the attic. Hey, actually, I have it right here. I was going through the attic, and I found this little diary. And this is the diary of her coming here. It's her remembering it before dementia took her mind. And so I found that, and I'm like, I'm making this into a film. And as I went into, not that I'd ever be famous or anything, but or that it would be like a Hollywood release or something, just like for the sake of my family,
Yeah.
I don't want this history to be lost. And as I got into that, I was like, that's it. This is all I'm going to do. I'm doing this because it matters. This really does matter. Our history matters. Our personal history matters. And so I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for me, for my sake, for my family, and I'm going to do it for other people too. And then I found out, oh, there's a whole niche of people who do this. And so I joined the fray.
Very interesting. That is cool. So, you've kind of shared the two examples that you gave, both came from going through the stuff in your parents' house. And my thought is that that's probably where a lot of ideas for these stories are going to come from, is like historical, retelling of things that you want to make sure that get passed. Is that kind of the niche that you're looking at? Is it any type of family story or stories of people?
Yeah, it can be. So, and I think, so Fascination Film Company is truly a heritage and legacy filmmaking studio. And a lot of the work that's done there is done for individuals and families. And I'm doing some of that kind of work. But what I've found is that behind every door is a fascinating story. And it doesn't have to be just the door of a house. In every business, in every church, in every community that's full of doors, man, there's so many stories. So I'm working right now for the town of Esterville, Iowa. Holy cow. I
Cool.
gotta tell you, working for a community, a town like that,
Yeah.
the number of stories and like the depth of the stories. So in that way, it is a look back and it's good to look back, but it's also a look forward. So like I'm working for the economic development director there. That person's job is to like get businesses to want to do business in Esterville and for the businesses that are there to like not want to leave and for the people
Right.
to stick around in small town Iowa, right? And so that film is like, where did we start? Who was Esther? Oh, she was this badass lady like 150 years ago, the matriarch of this town, this gritty lady, for whom, Esther Ridley, for whom the town was named. And then what has that town been through over all those years? And it's amazing. Tyler, I could tell you so many stories, but it's amazing like what that town has been through and stuck through and gotten through. And then where are we now as a community and where are we headed? So that film will also cast vision, right?
Sure.
So it is about looking back, but it's also about looking forward. There's a farming family that I'm working with, and part of it is like, where did we come from? But part of it is this is that person's opportunity to kind of look into the camera and say to his family, this is what I want you to know, and this is what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And that's pretty powerful. It creates a setting for that. So it is looking back. But creating a legacy film is also about creating your legacy, what will come after you're gone. We can craft that. You can determine that, and we determine it in part by the decisions we make every day. And one of those decisions can be intentionality about what will come after we're not here.
Yeah, and I had this thought about the last lecture, the book that Randy Pouch wrote. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not.
And for listeners, a great book to check out. A guy, gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and basically recounts this process that he goes down to give his last lecture. Ultimately wrote the book for his kids because they were young and he knew they weren't going to have a dad. Definitely a book that I don't think has come up on the Pursue Your Passion podcast that I would recommend to anybody listening.
Thanks for the reco. I wrote it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
thank you.
That's really cool. And part of the reason that I asked that question is, I also think about the legacy piece that's, and the historical aspect of it. But, I think about documenting momentous occasions, a state basketball championship team or something like that, and not just in fact, not even focused on the game play necessarily, but if there's a story behind that, is that in your wheelhouse, or is that no, I'd probably pass that to somebody else in the community that I've joined?
It could be. I think the things that really stand out to me in terms of those big moments would be like a travel film, maybe even more, because when you're traveling with somebody, it creates a platform or a stage to be able to ask the questions along the way. So we're going to capture the narrative of what happens through that travel experience. But then there's a lot of, as you know, in travel, you go to Haiti, right? There's a lot of downtime. And so that's a good time to ask questions that allow you to look back, but then you set the story in the present. And I think that's really interesting. But I would chronicle a basketball team. I think about things like big family reunions, or I think about milestone anniversaries or milestone birthdays, and I'm like, that's a good time to do a film. It's you take stock at those times, right? They cause you to reflect. Those are monuments in a way, or milestones in a way. They call them milestone birthdays or whatever, right? So it's like a time when you would take stock and say, okay, how did we get here? Where are we now? And where are we going? And you can really crystallize through a film. One thing that happens when you work with a filmmaker to do that sort of thing is not everybody's a storyteller. I mean, some of us are storytellers. And when you ask somebody to be a storyteller, if they're not, that's putting a pretty heavy burden on them. But if you say, just tell me all the stuff, and then a storyteller helps craft the story, then you end up with something that has the effect you hope it will, because other people can hear it, So, yeah, that's it. That's it, I guess. And I guess that is to say, I am passionate about helping people tell their stories to have the effect that they would hope their story would have, that it wouldn't be lost because of their, maybe inability to communicate it, or their humility around communicating it. I think sometimes we do that. We're like, wow, somebody just said it to me the other day. They're like, man, I wish I would have done this with my mom while she was still here. And this woman is a senior citizen. And I was like, well, your kids probably say that same thing about you, and you are still here. And she's like, oh, no, not me. Not me. So we
Yeah.
can't do that. We shouldn't do that. We
Right.
should not do that. This is something everybody should do by the time they're 75 years old.
Yeah. No, I agree. And actually it's got, I think Jess commented on one of your Facebook posts, because I had this idea of like writing a book about my grandpa, because he just was this extraordinary, ordinary man. I mean, there was, he's not famous, and not even famous in Sioux Center, but he did all these really neat things.
Mm.
And I don't know if that would be an opportunity at some point, but where actually, as you've been talking this morning, I think more about my dad.
Mm.
In December, he'll have been gone for 16 years,
Mm.
and he's got 8 grandkids that he never met.
Mm.
And like, what a cool thing to do, and the challenge with my grandpa is like, his friends are pretty much all gone. You'd have stories from his kids, but that's about it. Whereas with my dad, yeah, some of his friends have passed now too, but like, you could still get stories from high school, you could still get stories from college, and then obviously the family as well. But like, yeah, my wheels are spinning for sure. Like, I'm like, okay, maybe this would be something, what a cool gift, especially to, my mom and my brother and sister and I would love it, but we still have vivid memories. But like I said, he never met any of his grandkids. And so like, what a cool gift to give to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, my wheels are definitely spinning.
Well, my encouragement to you on this is it's not too late. I shouldn't say it's never too late, but we kind of have, there's sort of like a 3-generation legacy that happens on its own. People will maybe know their grandparents, maybe they know their great-grandparents. Their grandparents knew their great-grandparents. They'll talk about them a little bit.
Yep.
Their parents will talk about their grandparents, but then it fades unless you do something to perpetuate it. I went to breakfast this morning with this guy who's the curator of a museum here. It's called the Bruce Moore. And the Bruce Moore family was like an late 1880s kind of family who like established this big mansion here, and they're very influential in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And their legacy lives on because they had the means to do it, and they had the intentionality to do it. And so people are still honoring the wishes of the Bruce Moore family. They have a lot of money. Well, so there are many generations now past. And so if you make certain intentional things, and it doesn't have to be money, it can be the intentionality of a book, the intentionality of a film, the intentionality of those things. You can create that outcome for our good and for the good of those who will come after us. I hold the perception that we increasingly have a generation of people who kind of, their identity is rooted in so little. And part of that is that we're losing some of our history. So we sow into and do meaningful work for a coming generation by saying, this is who you are.
Yeah.
This is where you come through. We also have like an epidemic of anxiety. And gosh, I've been reading these newspapers from 100 years ago. The things that were on the front page of the newspaper 100 years ago, I have the same things on the front page of our newspaper. Now, it's like they got through it then. We're going to get through it now. These
100%.
are some unpleasant things, but listen, they made it. You're going to make it. It's going to be fine. You know? And I think there's a lot to be said for getting our arms around that.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a dad, right? And I lead young kids on Wednesday nights in my church and such and such. I'm passionate about kids understanding, hey, you don't have to be caught up in the undertow, the swell of the anxiety of your generation. You're going to be okay. God will see to it. And you got to partner with him in that,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And not to go down too far down one sidetrack, but like, this is and I'm holding up my phone, Teej and I are looking at each other. Like that's the biggest difference is you got it on the newspaper 100 years ago. Now you hear it from 18 different sources on, your smart device. And I that's driving a ton of that anxiety.
Right. So I want to put the right things on that smart device.
Yes.
I want to put stuff on that device that is a generation speaking to the next one and sharing with them some wisdom, advice, optimism, and story. A lot to be said for it. I think there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So I want to roll back in time a little bit. Tell us about your dreams as a kid. I know you said you had your camcorder, so maybe you've already answered that question. But what did you want to be when you were growing up?
That's funny. I've done a lot of things in my life, and that has always been a thing. I
Yeah,
was this kid who
same.
had a little red radio flyer wagon. We had a garden. My grandmother had a garden, and I was walking up, and I can't even believe my parents would even let me do this. I would harvest stuff from our garden, or I would go forage in the woods. I'd forage gooseberries and stuff, and put them, package them in quart things, and pull my that red flyer radio flyer wagon is still in my garage, and
Nice.
I'd pull it around the neighborhood, and I would sell produce door to door, right? Like I've always been pretty entrepreneurial. I have always been a little bit, as soon as I could push a mower, I was knocking on every neighbor's door. Hey, you want me to mow your yard, shovel your snow before I go to school? Like I've always been like that,
I love it.
extroverted and businessy and wanting to make a buck, right? And
Yep.
so I'd say that in the least bad way. I
Sure.
mean, I say it in a cheeky way. I've also always loved stories. So I've always, when I was a kid, I got there was a film production company in Des Moines. Got to be a child actor, And
Nice.
so I got to do some of that sort of thing. Got exposed to film and how it's done, and I felt like a rock star that I was getting paid money and got to hang out in this RV, this sort of thing. So cool. And but I when I was 14 years old, I went to Valley High School in West Des Moines, Iowa. And when I was 14 years old, I got a radio show. We had a radio station. And
Yes.
then
Yep.
we got to be a 100-watt stick. We got a 100-watt turnover while I was there, so you could hear it all over Des Moines. And this was in the 90s when like alternative music was becoming a thing, and KGGO in Des Moines still just played like, only butt rock. And so
Right.
that's fine. That's what we listened to back then. But this new thing, Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and all that stuff, you if you wanted to listen to it, you had to listen to these stupid high school kids. Well, anyway, I became the station manager at the radio station, got a morning show. So every morning I got up early and hosted a morning show before I went to school through high school, and I became sure that I would do radio for a
Yeah.
living. So through that, and I was going to be in radio, and then I was. That was my first career out of college, was radio.
Okay.
And my wife was in television, and so we were a media couple, and it goes on from there. But now I'm down that track. So
Yeah.
I did a lot of things as a kid. I got a job at a vet clinic. I loved animals, always loved animals. My mom was a dog groomer. My first job was at a vet clinic. And then I went to work at WHO Radio in Des Moines, and did those jobs through high school. But I don't know. I've sold vacuums, man. When I was 18 years old, I was selling vacuums, and I was closing 1 in 3. And I was like, cause salesmanship, right? And nobody could believe this kid with the funny tie is there selling him a vacuum, and I'd sell it to him, a lot of things.
I think I've finally met somebody who's had more jobs than I have. That makes me smile. So, and I don't want to go again. The second time I'm saying this, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. But now you definitely piqued my interest on the radio in the '90s in Des Moines. So, were you kind of prior to KKDM coming on the scene?
KKDM was on. That was the Des Moines schools. The West Des Moines School District had KWDM.
Okay.
And so KKDM, we made fun of them all the time. We thought they weren't good, and we thought we had it all figured out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but we did we took it seriously.
Yeah.
We did show prep every day. We showed up. Chris Bradshaw was my my co-host. We took calls. I mean, we were really doing radio, but we were high school kids. I have somewhere a film of a video. I've just found it of like us.
I love that.
Channel 5 was there, like, oh, they got a 100-watt stick, and there's me and my friend Chris Barber hosting the show, and Brian Dean Christensen, who worked for a long time. He was our teacher at Valley. He's at Waukee now, and he also worked at WHO. He got me my internship at WHO, and then they hired me. And so, it was an epic time. It was an epic thing to get to be part of.
Yeah.
What an unbelievable experience for a kid,
Right. That's really cool. So staying in that era, who was your hero growing up?
So the other thing we haven't talked about is I've always loved fishing. I can't even tell you how much I loved fishing.
Okay.
And so in the 4th grade, there was an assignment. We were learning letter writing, and everybody had to write a letter to their hero. This was the era of like the Chicago Bears it was like the dynasty. They had like the refrigerator, Joe Perry and whatever. I remember there was a bigger kid in my class. He wrote a letter to Joe Perry. It was Ralph Macchio, right? Somebody led the Karate Kid, right? I wrote a letter to this famous fisherman named Jimmy Houston.
I was going to guess Babe Winkleman, but Jimmy Houston.
Babe.
Okay.
I liked Jimmy Houston the best. I also loved Hank Parker, Bill Dance. This is that era, right?
Yeah.
And so Orlando Wilson, Roland Martin. This was the era of those guys on TNN, right?
Yep.
And so I was the only one who got a letter back. Matter of fact, Jimmy Houston took my letter, and he knew what he was doing. He's wise. He took an 8x10 glossy of himself holding up two big bass. He autographed it for me, and he took my letter and he answered it in the margins. And I asked questions like, "Do you have any dogs?" "I have two dogs." "I have two dogs. They are labs. They are this." And he put the letter with the 8x10 glossy and he mailed it back to me. So
That's
I
incredible.
still have it. And then my career went on that I worked in the fishing industry, on and off for like 20 years in and out of the outdoor industry. And I've gotten to like have dinner with this guy now. I remember sitting at dinner with him. I was like, "Hey, I wrote you a letter when I was in the fourth grade, and you sent it back to me. And thanks a million." He's like, "That's what I would always do," and whatever. So, that was really a rich thing. But I thought maybe I would be a professional fisherman. Then when I worked in the fishing industry, I'm like, I don't actually like to be on that side of it.
Sure.
It's something that's really fun for me, and it makes it you can fail at it. You're probably gonna fail at it. So.
Yeah. Jimmy Houston, right?
Jimmy Houston.
What?
Jimmy
Yeah,
Houston.
I mean, shout out to that guy. Like, what a cool thing to do for a 9 or 10 year, well, for anybody, but like to take the time to do that. He was rolling at a pretty high level at that point.
Yes.
He probably wasn't getting as many letters as Ralph Macchio or Refrigerator Perry, but like I can guarantee he was getting more than 2 or 3 a day, and that's really neat. That's one of those small things that makes a big difference in somebody's life. I mean, some kids might have just tossed it, but like that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah, it was super cool. We all have the chance to do stuff like that every day. Maybe people aren't sending us fan mail, but we can be an encouragement.
Yes. And that you finished my thought there. I kind of was going down that road and then, trailed off like I sometimes do. But yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have the ability. We may not have the status that this guy had, but like we have the ability to be encouragers every day. Thank you for finishing that thought.
Teamwork.
Absolutely. So I know, Fascination Films is a new endeavor for you. So, some of the people we talk to, I would say the majority of the people we talk to are a little, further down the road. As you've stepped into this, kind of recently, what's been the biggest struggle that you've had to kind of push through? And maybe there hasn't been any yet, but I mean,
trust me, there are.
All right. I assume with anything new, they come at you pretty fast and furious. But what struggles have you been able to, or have you been working on, and how are you overcoming them, or how have you overcome them?
I think this. Thanks for asking. I think this is something where your listeners can like glean something. So let me just try to give a couple of nuggets and encouragement. If somebody's listening to this and they're have recently decided to pursue a passion, or they just need a nudge or whatever, my plan in launching Fascination Film Studio was this. The fishing lure company I was at was my dream job when I went there. It was my dream job. I was actually not hired primarily to be a fishing lure salesman. I was hired to build a retail chain for them. And so very entrepreneurial, a lot of creative freedom and whatever. To make a long story short, that didn't work out. To gloss over a very uncomfortable thing, the company became insolvent. A small group of us stuck around to save the company. It worked out. We did save the company. And then we were acquired a second time. And through all that and kind of the challenges that are incumbent in that, I decided this was no longer my passion.
Yep.
And so I've, like I said, been so passionate about people, and I've been making films forever just on the side, right?
Okay.
Here was my plan. I was going to line up 4 gigs. I started the company on paper, filed the thing and whatever, started building a website and stuff, and just going to quietly build this thing up. And when I had 4 gigs lined up, I was going to quit my job because I am a dad with a mortgage and responsibilities, and I'm the primary breadwinner and such and such and such. So I was going to quit my job when I had 4 gigs lined up because I believed, 4 gigs is 4 months. And by the time I get through those 4 things, surely I will have the 5th, and surely I'll have the 6th, and I'll be able to springboard this thing forward. To make a long story short, and I know I've said that a few times, so I'm making a long story medium at least. It's too hard to chase 2 rabbits. You can't chase 2 rabbits.
Yep.
And I didn't feel I was being fair to my full-time company, who I was drawing a handsome salary from. I did not feel that I was honoring that salary if it didn't have my full attention and my full heart. I wasn't able to be the employee I would want to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also, I couldn't be very effective in founding this new company because I couldn't like build it in public and talk about it because I'm the vice president of another company. I
Right.
can't do that, right? And so I quit my job without a single gig. And I had to trust that it was going to work out and that I was not only pursuing my passion, but pursuing my purpose, my God-given purpose. I had to believe that. And guess what? I gave a 3-week notice.
Yeah.
And in the week, my last week there, I got a referral gig. So the Friday was my last day at my old company. And on Monday, I was out on a paid shoot. And
Wow.
that was pretty awesome. So it's a challenge I worked through, but the blessing came quick. For me now, the challenge is being kind of a solopreneur. I have other friends and contractors who are helping out, but I've gone from a space in recent years of having a team of people and being part of a team. And there's a
Yeah.
lot that comes from that. And when you are everything, boy, that is a challenge because you
Mm-hmm.
can do a lot of things. You only have so much time and
Right.
we can't be great at everything. So
Yeah.
I'm good enough at building a website. I'm good enough at doing marketing. I'm good enough at video production. I'm good enough at sales and business stuff. I'm not excellent at all of those things. And when you're in a company of people, you can have an excellent accountant and then an
Yep.
excellent whatever. And then you lean on those people. And it's challenging to not have that. Doesn't prevent me from doing it, but it is a challenge that I'm still making my way through and how to allocate my time correctly because there's so many opportunities to devote our time. So those are the present challenges that I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. And I love how you laid that out as going from a group to a solopreneur, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Doing all that stuff yourself. I looked over because I've got these little sticky notes on my computer to, keep me focused. And one of them says, don't be busy being busy. It's really easy when you're the only one to get busy being busy. And even working in a development role, but as the leader of the development, all the things, it's like I find myself getting in the weeds and it's like I'm busy being busy. I'm not actually calling any donors or any prospects. That's not good. Like that needs to be the top priority and everything else needs to be secondary. And that gets harder again in your situation where you're trying to build an entire organization by yourself, balancing like this has to get done, but this is more important. So how do I do both of those things?
And it's the things that when somebody's thinking about like, well, making the leap and whatever, yeah, I can do that, and I did that. It's like, yeah, you did it, but you had a team. It's like now it's just gonna be you. And so, there's lots of ways to go about it, but it is real hard to chase two rabbits. And everybody who has tried to do the thing, nights, weekends, over my lunch hour, knows this pain. And at some point, you should make the leap. And I've made the leap a handful of times. I've started a handful of things, and some of them worked out, and some of them didn't. It's okay. That's okay. Do it anyway.
That's a great. I love that advice. It's okay. Do it anyway. I mean, because if what you're feeling is, if that's your passion, you've got to give it a shot at some point.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So on the flip side of that, what's been your biggest success or what are you the most proud of?
I love spending time with people. I love it. I love spending time with people and drawing out their story, drawing what part of me, I mean, I'm on a podcast right now, so I'm doing a lot of talking, and that's kind of like you think about a storyteller being, oh, but this guy can spin a yarn. But the only way you can do it is first you got to do a lot of listening.
Yeah.
And so being able to be in the shoes you're in, of asking the question and then drawing out the story. I love it so much. And then creating a comfortable space for the person that they're going to want to really open up and tell the good stuff.
Hmm.
And I love it so much. And then crafting that story and saying, we're going to drop this, or I'm going to narrate over this. I'm going to speed this up for them. Building out those stories is so rewarding, but none of it is as rewarding as showing it to them,
Yeah.
giving it back to them, and seeing the impact that it has. I mean, it's always emotional, the person already knows all the information. They told you the information, but when you package it up in a certain way and serve it back to them, that is so rewarding,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. With stepping into Fascination Films and and I know I said it before, but like you're early on in this, but
Mhm.
what's a goal or a dream that you haven't reached? And
Okay.
there's probably, I would assume, being early on, there's a lot. So I'll leave that up if you want to talk about the next goal, or
Yeah.
if you want to go like, hey, my long term, the one that I'm really striving
Mhm.
for, or if you want to hit both, that's fine too.
I mean, I feel so vulnerable. Like, I'm gonna tell you the true answer, and I feel just almost sheepish saying it. So I'm sort of glad that you asked. But I'm also like, ooh, it's making me squirm. Because I feel like sort of like unworthy. So part of what I'm doing with this is I'm also writing a book.
Oh,
And the book is to democratize this idea. I think for a lot of people who are listening, they're like, this would be cool. I guess I'd never thought about it. And I think increasingly it's valuable. And there might be a groundswell of thought that says this is something you should do by the time you're 75 years old.
yeah.
But the truth is, the fact is, a lot of people would just never be able look at a graph of income in America. There is at least 50% of the population that could never afford to hire somebody like me to do this,
Right.
which doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And so I want to democratize the idea. So I'm writing a book. It's about a third storytelling. I tell some of the stories that I shared with you guys today, and
Yeah.
about a third of it is justifying or making the case that you should do this. It's encouragement. Come on, you should do this. You got to do this. There's a lot of
Yeah.
ways to do it. You got to do it. And then a third of the book is like literally how to do it. This is
I was
exactly how to
hoping
do
that's
it.
what you were going to say. I love
100%.
that.
So I want to democratize this idea that anybody could do it. We have this amazing device. You held it up earlier. I'm holding up my iPhone, or a person could do an Android. It's amazing. So a person can do this. You can do this, and you don't have to do a film. You talked about writing a book. There's journals you can do. There's lots and lots of ways. There's websites. There's services you can do. Send you an email once a week and whatever. You answer the thing, and then they make you a book or whatever. Lots and lots of ways to do it. It's really important, and I think people should do it. So I'm writing a book about it, and so. That is a very near-term goal, is to get this book published and not to have it be kind of a crappy straight-to-paperback book. And I could take a rabbit trail there, and I may if you're interested. But what it leads on to, and this is where I'm a little sheepish, is one day I want to give a TED Talk. And I want to
Yeah.
give a TED Talk about legacy and the impact and importance of legacy, what it means to be creating our legacy through our lives, what our heritage means, and the intentionality of our life for the sake of the one who will come next. I one day have set this goal that within the next 10 years, I'd like to give a TED Talk.
I love that goal, and I think you're heading in the right direction. As soon as you said the book, I was like, I wonder if he's going to say, I want to tell people how to do it, because you're absolutely right. Like I'm over here going, can I afford to do a story on my dad? Do I have to get my brother and sister? Do I have to ask mom for money? Like, I'm engaged in our conversation, but those are the random things that are going on in the back of my head right now. And, I'm in a upper middle class standing, and so I'm sure, like you said, 50% or even higher could not afford this, but they don't have to be able to afford it to still have that legacy recorded.
True.
There's another, I'll throw out another book, and this is maybe a little bit of a shameless plug because it's my boss's book, Standing on Shoulders, and he wrote a book about walking with his dad through the last 6 months or a year of his life, and finishing well with him. Obviously not everybody can write a book, but if we are willing to, share that story, then all of a sudden, or, you're willing to share the how to, everybody can take the time to finish well with someone. Everybody can take the time to tell that story that otherwise the kids may not ever hear.
Yep.
So yeah, that's awesome.
Amen. That's the goal. That's the idea. Can we do like a 1 minute rabbit trail on that book thing?
Yes, absolutely.
It's getting easier and easier for somebody to become an author. You
Yeah.
no longer have to have a big publishing house. Amazon can print on demand. Now we got ChatGPT and all this stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I started this book, I wanted a marketing tool for my new business, and I was like, I'm gonna knock this book out. I could knock it, and there's all kinds of resources out there. Write a book in a weekend, right? Or write a book in the next 30 days, or whatever. And there's all this thought around like do an Amazon keyword search and find out what people are searching for and where there's not already a lot of media, and that's how you make the quickest race to a bestseller and all this stuff. And I kind of started drinking from that well a little bit. And I started using ChatGPT to help get through some of the boring parts of this thing. And you know what I ended up with? A terrible book. A terrible book that was like, there is no soul here. I could reread it and I'd be like, everything here is true and accurate, but I don't feel. Nothing here feels. And then I ordered somebody else's book who's like a business coach off of LinkedIn or something. And I got the book and I opened it and a couple pages fell out. And I thought, no way. This is not what I'm doing. I am not building a house of cards here.
Right.
I'm building a firm foundation. And so I totally rethought it. I started going to everybody I know who's in this space or who's, whatever, and started interviewing real people and like getting actual gravitas to build a book that you'd be proud to own it as a hardcover book,
Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of people who, as they think about pursuing their passion, they're like, oh, that's a route. I'll write a book. That'll be a tool for me. Just let's not cut that corner. Let's not cut that corner. Go ahead and write the book. Write something of substance that you'll be proud of that actually contributes to your legacy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And thank you for going down that rabbit hole, because it is. I mean, and that's a challenge, for anybody, even if you take the time to not write a soulless book, that whole, do I self-publish, do I go after a publisher route is a challenge for anybody. Even if you've taken the time to write high quality, it's like, well, this one may never pan out, and this one I can do myself. Like, which one do you go back and forth on? That's a challenge for sure.
I think you do work that you're proud of.
Yes. Yep.
You do work you're proud of. And,
That is very good. TJ, I have another question that I want to ask that you alluded to in one of your other answers. So, if you've got a different route you want to go with this, awesome. If you don't, that's fine too. But, what would you say to somebody that is struggling to get their passion project? Well, what would you say to somebody that's struggling to find their passion? But then also maybe somebody who has found it that is like stuck.
Okay. I have a point of view on this, and it comes from how I think we're intended to live. In the Western world, we are so individualist oriented. We are not meant to live that way. And we are also, even the most gracious of us, we've grown up generation after generation of sort of self-seeking and selfish. I'm not meaning to point my finger at anyone. I'm saying this of me. I'm saying this of me. So it's like, pursue your passion, right? And I'm pursuing my passion, right? But I do think there is something to be said of that idea of the purpose-driven life. What is your purpose? What are you here for? Seeking that out is really it. And then, then you go from there, right? So I would say first purpose, and then hopefully our purpose and passion align. They're meant to. And then people. So we are not meant to live this incredibly individual life. We should have a circle of people around us, esteemed people around us, wise counsel around us, who you could say, all right, here's what I'm thinking about. What do you think? And that's what happened here. I had actually 3 business ideas that were all good. I was passionate about all of them. All of them aligned with my A strengths. All of them had a clear path to profitability, that it could be a sustainable way. I could support my family and support the kinds of ministries that I want to support and such. And this wise counsel of friends was like, this one, Teeg, this one. And that's where Fascination Film Company found footing, because the other ideas were, trust me, they're great ideas. I was actually much more excited about one of these other ideas, and maybe one day I'll pursue it. But they were like, no. I'm terrified for you if you do those things. But at this, I'm not worried at all. And so the wise counsel
I
of
love
friends
that.
is really good. So don't do it in a vacuum. Do it in cooperation and collaboration with friends who know you and who have a good head on their shoulders and who won't just tell you, go for it, buddy, and send you off a cliff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need my mother to tell me I'm good looking.
That's awesome. It's just interesting that you brought that up because as I've done this, as I've had the conversations, the word purpose holds such a stronger place in my heart than the word passion does. Full transparency. I'm saying that on the Pursue Your Passion podcast. I think it's just, I'm at a different place in life than I was, 3 years ago. I also think there was maybe a Pursue Your Purpose podcast already. And that's, I was like, all right, well, I got to go with the one that, doesn't already have a name. But I love that you brought that up. And I don't take that as throwing shade. I think it's looking at those two words and I love that you gave the answer that you did, because a lot of times purpose and passion are two different things. And when we find where those two intersect, that's where we can really get fired up about things and do some incredible things.
There's plenty of things we can do that'll make us happy, but they don't lead to lasting happiness.
Yep.
There are things we can pursue, and for me, and I think for all of us, whether we know it or not, it's God and the things of God. And once we lay hold of that and make Him our pursuit, then happiness comes, and so I really think that's, I think that's the firmest foundation.
Bingo. Love it. Teej, this has been awesome. I'm really glad that it worked out for schedules, and I'm excited for the journey that you're on, and definitely wish you the best. We've got listeners that I'm hoping will want to connect with you and learn more. Where is the best place for them to connect with you?
Sure, fascinationfilms.com. Fascinationfilms.com will lead you to our social media. We, of course, have stuff on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn. But fascinationfilms.com is a pretty good landing page to get you started and connecting up. And I love talking to people. So it's real easy to click contact us on there, and you can contact with me. And I even got a link on there. You can just throw time on my calendar so we can get to know each other one-on-one.
Awesome. Well, Teej, thanks again for being on the show. I love your voice, and I love the work that you're doing.
I'm honored to have had this time with you and your listeners. So thank you so much, Tyler.
Absolutely. And everybody listening, keep pursuing your passion.
If you have questions or would like to contact us, please check out the show details for contact information. Thanks for listening to the Pursue Your Passion podcast.